Call and Response collection of poetry inspired by Cedar Shoals student Zoom language. My name is Katherine Johnson. This is my first poem. Plundered, the scrappy underdogs, forced across the Oconee River, the fighters, the unbothered, the overcomers, those who dare to spark a shanty town on a dare. Rejected by those who forced them to dress out on buses and not locker rooms, we made our world with paper-thin walls and no glory fields. For 15 years, those cast out past the shoals slung boulders and cow pies in a rock quarry to make a football field, to make a way where there was no way. The East Side makes something out of nothing, promises out of curses, screams in the street until towers of injustice come toppling. Only when the west wind blows do they hear the muffled roar, the cry of the undocumented, the North Ave painters, the left-brain thinkers, ever dancers, young people ready to explode, never more to be silenced, forgotten, manipulated, or counted out. To all those who never trod upon this sod, to those not blessed enough to be counted as overcomers, touch the rock. Radically remember those pushed aside. What you're about to see is the digital language of Black and Hispanic 16 and 17-year-olds in East Athens, Georgia, who are a part of Gen Z, which inspire my poetry. In a wild new territory of Zoom High School this year, they feel most comfortable communicating on the Zoom chat in the language of their streets, homes, or Instagrams. There are many challenges for students in this time period on Zoom. They struggle with the visual component of Zoom and opt to keep their screens dark. Sometimes these same students are criminalized for this behavior and is seen as lazy or not committed to the learning process. But through the chat, I find out why they struggle to turn on their cameras. This Black female says that she has her bonnet on. Other students say that they feel they look a mess behind the camera. This could either be their individual appearances or their home. But despite everything, the classroom community encourages one another to show up regardless of all the challenges. It is this encouragement and hope that they show one another that inspires me to create my art. Here we see that they love this period because the chat is their safe space. They find a safe refuge there. But many of the students express not being able to talk after this class, that they experience silence, that they experience what they call as hell. And the student says that for the rest of the day, he's like, "Save me, Lord." And we can see even here their creative expressions in their language and the way that they communicate with one another. Lisa Delpritton said in 1987 that children have the right to their own language and their own culture. We must fight the system by insisting that children be allowed to express themselves in their own language style. It is not them, the children, who must change, but the schools. And I have seen these repressive and reactionary impulses being enforced on children in this challenging time. Here we see the students saying that the chat, once again, is their safe space, that they feel like they can blow up the chat, that they feel like they can be themselves when they show up every morning. But despite everything, sometimes they do fear that they may be criminalized or watched, that they may be penalized for being their authentic selves in the Zoom chat. But despite that fear, they show up regardless. And they say that that makes this class worth showing up for. I respond through poetry to my students. They hype up the rims, despite the way we derail and deflate them. Their kindness towards their fellow spotty broadband learners inspires. Despite grown echo chambers, they resist our walls. They loom in IGs and ats, the safety of their group chats. They push into TikToks, wild tongues flaring out to intersections of rough and tumble identity, royalty in a dark square. On God. Who's to say that robbing a people of language is less violent than war, Ray Smith said. My poetry honors and elevates my students' creative resistance and elevates their unique voices and identities. I want to encourage all teachers through my poetry to not see the Zoom chat as off-task behavior, but rather it acknowledges student culture and identity expressed through their Zoom language and acknowledges the limitations for marginalized students in this time period.